Texas Pecan Gourmet Coffee. Sleek new design, same bold flavor. Fill your cup with the flavor of pecan and cocoa. The only gourmet coffee you'll ever need. Handcrafted, slow roasted, perfection. Our coffee provides a comforting experience for any time of day. Start with Texas Pecan and savor the heartland in each brew. Get yours now at monkeywerx.com.
All right. Hey, welcome, folks. This is going to be your sit rep. It's 10/7/2025. Come to you live here from the Monkey Lounge in the great state of Texas. So today we're going to be talking about Tomahawks, and I'm not talking about pork chops. I'm talking about missiles going to Ukraine, which in my opinion, I think is the most craziest thing we could possibly do. If you're wanting to promote peace, the last thing you do is keep putting fuel on the fire, and giving Ukraine Tomahawk missiles is going to do just that very thing. So we're going to go through the news cycle of all the stuff that's happening between Ukraine and Russia and the United States jumping in there, NATO getting in there. There's just a lot of different dynamics going on here that I think we should all be paying close attention to, because it absolutely is sounding the World War III alarm clock, and it's ticking down. I mean, we are so close to something popping off. It's not even, let's just get into it. So starting off, let me just take you over here. First and foremost, we're going to look at the skies, U.S. military only over the United States. I say U.S. There's probably some foreign military stuff mixed in there too. They are around here quite a bit. So now you'll notice the yellow circles again. That's intel, surveillance, reconnaissance. You can see that about 60-70% of the United States is covered up. That means there's some type of an intelligence apparatus. There we go. Looking at something here on our beautiful soil. So if you live in one of those circles, just know you've got something that is probably gathering and collecting in your area. All right. So let's kind of break it back a little bit here. I'm going to kick it up to the side. You can see the high flyers, mil intel balloons. These are well above commercial traffic. And I mean like 2-3x above commercial traffic. So very, very high. And then if I take us over to Europe, so you guys can see what's going on over there as well. And just notice they too have a lot of these intel gathering circles. Okay. So if you live inside this, basically Europe for the most part, you have intel balloons over your head that are also grabbing data. And then you got Navy P-8s that are out over the water. And this one, it's going to be an R-135 that's airborne out. Looks like this is Constanta, the Black Sea. Okay. So we'll kick it back over here to the United States. And then we just start kind of peeling this back some. So look at the ISR aspect, right? So this is LaSalle Aviation primarily. There are some other assets tied into it. It's not the drones, but you can see pretty busy around Japan, right? Over South Korea, and looking at North Korea, and then over the Europe, right? Over Constanta, around Kaliningrad. That's kind of the usual. You can see the flurry of activity. This is just 3 days, right? Taking a look closely at the U.S., down below. This is in addition to the yellow circles that I showed you. You can see very heavy over the over DC and over the Chesapeake. All right. So that's ISR aspect. Now take a look at the drones. Again, we'll start off over in Asia. You can see in Japan, pretty active coming out of Okinawa. Nothing down under. You look at Australia, I don't see anything flying right now. I mean, they do have their military stuff. I just haven't pulled that. And then around kind of, headed into the Persian Gulf, the Gulf of Oman, the Strait of Hormuz. Then you can see some low altitude stuff over the Mediterranean and absolutely nothing over Europe. Zero from a drone perspective, at least not showing. That out over that danger box area of Southern California near Baja. And then got one that just beads all the way down, pretty hard line there. Hits down south in South America, then goes all the way across Africa, south of Nairobi, and into the Asian Pacific side. So that is a drone, and I don't know that the altitude is accurate, but just kind of gives you an idea that the range on these things, right? And then, of course, let's go over here to the R135, and you can see nothing over Asia. Get over the Europe side of the house, and you'll notice just around Kaliningrad, but there's a lot of kind of hanging out and loitering in that area, as you can see the loops. This is Jake 35. All right, just kind of doing some roundabout there. Center focus, Russia, Kaliningrad. And then you can see Broken Trace headed out to the Middle East, outbound. Then it goes dark as it gets towards Russia, towards the primary areas, right? Iraq, Syria, etc. Then over to the U.S., you'll notice one that comes out just right up to the southern border, does a little loitering, and then you got the normal stuff we see kind of over the Dakotas, and then one looks to be headed back from South Florida. All right. Now, take a look at this. We're going to look at C-17 traffic last 3 days, and you'll note there's quite a bit of activity in the last couple sit reps out over Asia, right? Japan, Okinawa, etc. A little blip of some stuff down in Australia. But look at the volume going into the Middle East. Look how thick these trace lines are. And they're going back and forth. So they're right up there into kind of Qatar, UAE. Right? You can see them coming and going. So some round trips. And heavy into Portugal. Right, very close to Gibraltar. Now, also notice that you see a little bit of activity there into Germany, right, into Ramstein. That's kind of a center point for us. But you can see 3 days worth of flights going across the drink. These are back and forth, so round robins. Okay, same thing here. Yeah, you kind of expect it in England. There's a pretty big exercise going on over there, but I don't see a lot, honestly. And some flights back and forth from Hawaii, right, Alaska, and then down to USVI. Right, getting ready for what's going to happen down in Venezuela. Okay. Now, air refuelers. Take a gander. You can see just some loitering off of South Korea, which is a good indicator of fighter activity. Nothing down under. Bounce on over here to the Middle East, and you'll notice it looks like some stuff going in and out of Kuwait. Right, maybe bringing some fighters in to the region. Okay, and then you can also see little broken traces there headed towards Turkey. Right up the pipe through, just the same area. We just saw all of the traffic going into that base in near Portugal, near Gibraltar. So a lot of flows from an air refueler perspective, which would tell you we got a lot of fighters over the Med. And then, of course, is stuff, we've got this exercise going on there, so you kind of expect to see a little bit of that. And you can see back and forth. All right, so bringing something over there, coming back. From an air refueler perspective, again, more than likely, we just parked a whole bunch of fighters right there in or near Gibraltar, right, in Portugal. And South Florida, you can see a little bit of loitering, which means that we probably have fighters out there over the Caribbean. Then a little blip up there to Alaska. Now, take a look at NATO. And this will just kind of give you a little bit of an idea of exactly what it is they've been up to. I saw some posts saying that, Europe was very quiet. This is only 3 days, so it really hasn't been quiet. More than likely what they have is a feed issue. They're probably not getting, and I was having that same issue. I was looking, and there's just things weren't showing up. And so sometimes that happens. You just have to reinstall the software. But you can see Europe is pretty active, especially on that whole forward flank. On the Eastern Front, very active. Okay. Got some flights that are going all the way across the drink there. You can see some stuff headed down into what looks to be kind of Savannah area. And coming in to maybe Vancouver or Seattle, and then back headed out to Hawaii, then headed out over the Pacific. Right. And then kind of strange to see this flight that's inbound to, man, looks like it's headed towards Venezuela from a NATO perspective. And then you could see out there in the Caribbean and some stuff going into USVI, it looks like. So maybe even Puerto Rico, right? All right, let's get into the news cycle. We got a lot to cover and a lot to talk about. So we'll start off over here. Just look at all of the TFRs and the NOTAMs, right? These are flight restrictions or notice so that pilots don't fly into these areas. Good indicator, a lot of exercises, a lot of danger boxes. So the red area here, this is kind of a no-fly zone. You can see it reaches all the way down. The Black Sea is almost completely covered up. You've got exercise stuff going down here on the northern side of Turkey, but then you've got danger boxes reaching all the way out here over the Black Sea. Now look who runs this. This looks to be the Russians that put this NOTAM out there, okay? And then, I mean, Romania is covered up all the way up the whole eastern front of Poland, right? Into Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. St. Petersburg has their own TFRs as well. So it's pretty active. This is, where the exercise stuff is taking shape out here. Danger boxes, exercise boxes, both sides. So, and then of course we've got this off the coast of France, which is a danger box. I mean, you can see there is quite a bit on the map. And you get over here to the U.S. and we've got our danger boxes up the east and west coast, and then lots of things over the U.S. as well. All right, now let's move on. Get over here to the White House. He looks to be meeting with the Prime Minister of Canada today. All right, and let's keep going. So this one, man, I thought I'd throw it out there because it caught my eye. Trump says he may invoke the Insurrection Act to deploy more troops. Now, we've had recent sit reps talking about the fact that, man, there's a lot of things happening in D.C. and all of these executive powers that are reaching out, Chicago and Portland, L.A. Something's definitely afoot, right? You've got JAGs being deployed. You have, and that's just in D.C., you've got all of these, wars being declared on terrorist organizations and cartels. So that aspect of it looks like we're getting a lot of movement. Okay, so we'll keep our eye on DC, but this right here. Now, remember, if he does the Insurrection Act, that doesn't mean he can do UCMJ and court martials. That has to be he has to file martial law basically to do that. Okay, so if he did that inside DC, declared martial law, then that would give the military more power, right? But this is a little bit of a different approach. Still, nonetheless, he's getting tired of these federal judges and these mayors and governors and everybody else shutting him down. Okay. And if you saw what happened in Chicago and you've been watching what's going on in Portland, these folks are getting pretty bold. And I mean, you actually had somebody with a fully automatic rifle actually box in some of the ICE folks. I think they rammed them. And I mean, just people are getting stupid. And Chicago is going to be an interesting type of beast to deal with, okay? Because you got a lot of gangs and, there's just Chicago's a pretty high crime spot, okay? All right, let's move on. So Russia issues a blunt warning to Trump on Tomahawks for Ukraine. Now, I talked about in the last sit rep that this was a non-starter for Russia, right? So we're going to continue to kind of pull the thread on that because Trump has turned around and basically doubled down and said, yeah, we're going to give it to him. But then he kind of waffles a bit, all right? So Trump now is seeking reassurances on Ukraine's use of the Tomahawk missiles for delivery, before delivery. So he's saying, hey, look, I've made a decision pretty much, okay? A little bit of a soft push, right? I think I want to find out what they're going to do with them. This is a Trump quote, okay? Where are they going to be sending them? I guess I have to ask that question. yeah, you probably should have done that before you committed. Okay. So now you can uncommit, but I will tell you, if you're trying to push peace into the region, I mean, this definitely sends us a very strong message to Russia, but you are also giving Ukraine the ability to hit Russia very, very deep. Now, I'm going to show you some map sequences over the last, since October 1st, as to what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. And you'll see there's definitely, if Ukraine has it, they'll use it, okay? So take a look at this. Let me bounce you over here, and I'm just going to talk about kind of an infographic here on the Tomahawk cruise missile, what it is and what it does, okay? So it's a land attack missile, okay? You can use it in all weather, long range, and when I say long range, I mean, it's got far greater reach than just about anything that Ukraine has with this size ordnance, okay? So it's a subsonic, which means it doesn't break the sound barrier. Therefore, it doesn't really have a big radar signature because it is terrain following. So they come in low and slow, and it keeps from flagging. So these missile defense systems very rarely can pick them up because of that, right? Now, currently, it's launched from Navy surface ships, okay, or submarines. Well, if you know anything about the makeup of the land around, Ukraine, it's land. It's just that. There's some waterways in there, okay, but it's not, they're not like surrounded by ocean and have a large Navy or a large, anything, okay? So this, you're going to have to modify. You're going to have to give them some land-based launchers to make this actually feasible for Ukraine. Do they have them? Yeah. Do they work great? Not so much. But take a look at this. The weight's 2,900 pounds. Thus, the land-based launching it's a little bit of a struggle, right? Speed, 550 mile an hour is the cap, and the range, 1,550 miles. Like, that is super, super deep into Russia if they were to get this. Now, the cost, this says about 2.9 million a copy. It really depends on the package. If you have to give them launchers to go with it, then it obviously goes up. You could have all, in the range of 10 million bucks to get a missile plus a launcher and all the accoutrement that goes with it, okay? Warhead, 1,000 pounds. So that's going to be a lot bigger than anything like the UAVs or the drones that they currently have that they're hitting deep into Russia with. So pay attention to that because, again, game changer. This kind of thing will absolutely keep Putin up at night, all right? Because now it puts so much in reach with a very large warhead. So you'll see, we're going to talk about the refineries being hit and what it does to basically to Russia and their economy, et cetera, by having these things struck on a pretty frequent basis. But you're hitting them with the low ordnance drones or UAVs, okay? Slightly different. You hit one of those with a cruise missile, and that thing's going to be out of commission for quite some time, okay? So you can see why that's such a big deal to Russia. So this is what Putin is saying. He's saying supplying Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine will destroy the U.S.-Russia relations. So any type of relationship that we currently have is going to be completely kiboshed if this indeed goes through. And it looks like it has already been approved. But now, again, he's waffling, maybe because he realizes that this might really get us past the point of being able to pull it back. Right. Now, let me just show you the map since October 1st as what has been going on within Ukraine and with Russia, okay? So October 1, you'll notice these are some drone strikes from Russia. Russia's been throwing hundreds of drones at these folks, okay? Now, the same thing, again, another day 2, we go to day 3, and you can see there's just a lot of strikes. This is just north of Kiev. Okay, you get to this one and it goes deep, like really deep, folks. This is a whole, you're talking the entire western flank, almost hitting into Russia. This probably, when these things were inbound, Poland absolutely got fighters in the air, and we're up really, really looking closely at this. Okay, canceled, commercial flights, etc., because of the missiles and the drones hitting way out here. Now, I'll give you some news that ties to this in just a minute, but we'll continue to go through it. All right, you get to day 5, and you'll notice again another series of hits far, far west in Ukraine. Day 6, you can see some things deployed, air defense, etc., and then some strikes by Ukraine for some key locations. And then you get here. Let me just show you. This right here is like 2,400 kilometers, way, way deep. This would have been a drone or a UAV type of thing. It's not going to have a lot of ordnance on it, but look what they hit, an oil refinery. Okay, that's key. And you get over here, what do they hit? Chemical plant, right? What did they hit here? I think this was actually one of the ATACMs. And so this, you look at oil terminal. All right, so it just kind of goes into some of the details around the strike. But nonetheless, you can see there's some pretty deep hits in here, right? So if this is 2,400 kilometers, then your cruise missiles can hit about maybe around here. Okay, but again, 1,000-pound ordnance, right? That's a very big boom, all right? So let's keep going. All right, Russia attacks, targets military industrial sites in western Ukraine. So that's what I was showing you on this map when we went back to the 5th and you saw all of this stuff out here, right? So that's what's going on there. So it says a large-scale overnight Russian attacks on Ukraine reportedly hit major arms production facilities and the energy infrastructure supplying them. That's according to the RDM, which is Russian Defense Ministry. But you can see there is, that's pretty lit up right there, fully engulfed in flames. All right, let's keep going. So Ukraine mounts major drone attack on Russian ammo plant, and that was the booms that I showed you. Oil terminals and arm depots. So again, they're hitting surgically. Now, here's the thing. If you start to look at, let me take you back over here, and I think I pulled that together. Let me get this. And we're going to talk about, let's see. That's not what I wanted to tell you. Let's talk about this here in just a minute, okay? But when you start looking at the things that are being hit, all right, you start talking about U.S. intelligence, okay? Now, remember, the U.S. intelligence side has basically come in, or somebody within the Trump administration has told Ukraine that they are going to give them the intelligence they need to hit the strikes of the critical infrastructure pieces that we feel are important. That also puts us further along and deeper into the war front. If we start designating targets for Ukraine to hit with product that we're providing to them, we may as well be in a war, right? We may as well be in there. The only difference is we're not pulling the trigger. We're giving them the gun and we're giving them the target, right? But we're not the guys pulling the trigger. That becomes kind of a gray area, right? Because now you may as well pull the trigger. Right? You've heard talk about, we're going to put peacekeepers in if we can get this peace deal going. We've talked about boots on the ground. We've talked about putting F-16s in the sky. So there's all of this talk that would indicate that we are absolutely very close to being on the brink of war directly with Russia, right? No longer proxy, okay? So Russia, I just showed you, hit all of these targets in western Ukraine. So the big question is, did Chinese satellites guide those Russian missiles, drones, to the targets? If that is indeed the case, then look, you're starting to see an alliance that is getting very cohesive between the Chinese and the Russians. That's a big threat, because that means the United States, more than likely, if we go to war, are going to be taking on two of our biggest enemies, okay, at once. That's a big deal. Right. Now, this is where I'll get back to what I was about to show you. Russia's spare oil export capacity running out as drones are hitting refineries. They keep hitting them. Now, listen, those are drones. Again, it's enough to catch them on fire, take a couple things offline, but they get them back up and running. You start handing them Tomahawk missiles with 1,000 pounds worth of ordnance, they're not going to get those refineries back up. They're going to take them out, and it's going to be a big, big deal. Now, I do believe that Ukraine is trying to do this because they know it will force NATO, i.e. majority United States, into war with Russia. Okay? So you get back over and you go, well, just how big a deal is this when it comes to Russia's oil exports? Okay? What's their top export commodity? That's based on 2024. Yeah, you guessed it. Crude oil and refined petroleum products. Number 2, right, natural gas. 3, metals and minerals. Number 4 is agriculture. 5, chemicals and coal. Number 6 is vodka, the old potato stuff. Yeah, so it's up there. It's top 6, but oil is their number 1 commodity. So if you continue to hit them, then you're basically taking their number 1 income offline. Okay, it's going to kill their economy. How long do you think we can do that? And I say we because if we're designating targets, all right, and giving them all this stuff to hit them through a proxy war, how long do you think that'll go on until Russia says, no more, right? Not long. Okay, let's get back over here. Continue down the line. All right. Russia's hybrid war against NATO ramping up. This is coming from Danish intelligence. Now, remember, the Danish, they just had a whole bunch of drone incursions, okay? And that's what we've been seeing a lot of. And so what Russia is doing, and I showed you this. Let me go back over to these incursion map here and take a look at this, right? Estonia, Poland, Romania, Denmark, okay? These are areas that Russia is testing the fence, right? They're seeing what is the response time? How do they react? Do they react? What are the soft points? So that if we go to war, we know our path. We know how we're going to get through. So they know, look, Poland absolutely would be the tripwire for World War III. If they come in through Poland, it's going to get hot fast because Poland has a pretty good defense. But you get into areas like Romania or Hungary, who is pretty much pro-Russian, right? Or you get up north by Estonia, you're going to face very little resistance coming through. So if they were going to make a push into Europe, that would probably be the way they're doing it. This right here is an indicator that Russia is testing to see the weaknesses, right? You do that when you're about ready to go to war, okay? So this report by Danish intelligence, let me just give you the crux of it all, right? Here's the highlights. The assessment basically of the threat, right? It says that the threat of sabotage against the Danish armed forces, now this is country direct in that statement. They say it's very high. The threat of destructive cyber attacks against Denmark, medium range. The threat of military provocation against NATO member states, very high. Okay, the threat of malign influence operations against Denmark is low, so they're not too worried about that. But the threat of a conventional military attack against Denmark, they say none, right? Because they know it's going to be NATO on the front. Denmark is just one of a small cog, but they are talking about the areas of high have to tie into NATO, all right? So you think about that for a second. Russia knows if we're the biggest part, we're like 90% of NATO. Russia knows that. Do you think they're going to try to fight us over there on the European front, or are they going to take out the 90% threat via nuclear, right? Hit the U.S. You're going against not just Russia, but China, right? Annihilate the threat and then take on Europe. That would be the approach I would do if I was Putin. So you have to really kind of step back and you look at the Bible and realize that, look, the United States is not mentioned in the Bible whatsoever. Guess who is? Right? You start talking about Gog and Magog, right? Ezekiel 38, Russia, front and center. In fact, they are the ones pushing it. Turkey, Iran, right? Those are the three primaries who formed an alliance in 2017. So you kind of let that set in for a minute and realize that, hey, look, there is big speculation that the hook in Ezekiel 38 that pulls them in to Israel and a direct attack on Israel has to do with energy. So if Ukraine and say even the U.S. continue to take out oil capabilities within Russia and they have no ability to basically push that stuff out, well, then all of a sudden you create the hook. So, all right, you tracking? Let's move on. So here's another report. Putin is ready for war with NATO, right? To be taken deadly serious. Too deadly seriously? Okay. Nonetheless, this is a report that came out. A senior European official in Germany intelligence services has evidence suggesting that the Kremlin is discussing military action against NATO. And he's basically saying, hey, look, if they're discussing it, then they plan on doing it. So I would agree with that just based on what we were watching unfold and the fact that Russia keeps pushing that envelope against the eastern flank to see what the responses are. So, yeah, I would agree. Okay. Now, here's one for you. Okay. We're starting to push Tomahawks into Ukraine. We are 90% of NATO. And then Trump comes out and basically calls Putin a paper tiger. Okay. Now, I'm just going to tell you, this is where I kind of find this. Maybe this is a little bit of projecting. Okay. Because if you look at who maybe is the lion without any teeth, I'm going to say it's probably Trump. All right. And I'm going to give you some backup for that. Okay. This right here, Trump gives Hamas a Sunday 6 p.m. deadline to accept his peace plan or face all hell. But it didn't accept it. In fact, that timeline came and went, and then everybody went quiet, right? But nothing has happened. So when you demonstrate that to the enemy, i.e. terrorist organizations, yeah, it shows weakness on our part, significant, okay? But look at what Trump has done versus what Putin does, okay? If you want a good example of a president who said what he meant what he said, Truman, right? They didn't mess with Truman. Why? Because Truman, if he told you he was going to do something, he did it. There was no fuzz on that. He followed through. You go look at what Trump has done, and now I know this is going to get some of you guys your dander up because I'm not trying to bash Trump. I'm just being Captain Obvious here, okay? Think about how many times Trump has waffled, okay? Right? Where he said, back in March that he was going to, annihilate, right? There's going to be bombing like never before when it came to Iran. Well, that didn't happen till June 16th, 18th, somewhere around there. Okay. You can look at how he's handling things here domestically. There's some follow through there, I would say, right? When it comes to kind of getting rid of all of the illegals, that's a big task. That part, maybe he's following through. But there's a lot of other stuff when you start looking at Epstein. What happened? It's just kind of gone quiet, hasn't it? All right? No arrests. Why? Right? He said how many times? Complete surrender, right? On the demand for Iran's nuclear program. Never did it. Okay? So he's done that quite a bit. And this is another example. Look, if you tell Hamas you got till 6 p.m. or you're going to face all hell and you don't follow through, you're showing some serious weakness there, okay? To me, that tells me that he has got some advisors out there that are giving him some pretty bad information. Same thing with the Tomahawk missiles, right? Why would you do that? If you're trying to push for peace, you're trying to get people to the table, the last thing you do is give Ukraine more fuel for the fire. You stop providing them, you stop giving them stuff, they're going to stop the war. It's going to end one way or the other, okay? Now look at Putin, okay? He said that he was going to annex Crimea in 2014, and he did it, all right? Ukraine Special Operation 2022, okay? That in February, he immediately launched a kinetic operation across Ukraine. We're in that war today, right? He is not mixed words. I mean, on any level, he has followed through with everything that he has put out there time and time again. So when you hear him talking about the fact that, hey, we're going to go to war, and you know, if you give Ukraine Tomahawk missiles, there's going to be hell to pay, right? So to speak. I think Putin means what he says. So that may be why we see a little bit of this waffling from Trump in terms of saying, well, I need to really look at what it is they plan on hitting with these Tomahawk missiles. But at the end of the day, it's projection, and we're projecting weakness when we waffle, okay? And I know he knows better than that. He absolutely does. I think he's getting bad advice from somebody. All right. Well, listen, that's going to do it for our sit rep today. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. We will see you on Thursday for the next sit rep. You guys be safe out there. God bless. Monkey out.